Welcome back, guys, to another episode from the PLO Mastermind. In today's video, I'm going to introduce a brand new course that you guys have been asking for on how to play Pot Limit Omaha with 5 cards. 5-card PLO has been gaining in popularity online and live, and you guys have requested for me to jump into the game format and might give you some takeaways on where to start and also where to intensify the legwork in order to become better. Now, I haven't played PLO 5-card that much. I played a few sessions, but I also have not put in the research so far. And I thought to myself, how can I figure out as much as possible, as fast as possible from the best resources on the market about this game? Now, there aren't a lot of training videos about 5-card PLO. There isn't a lot of research out there, but there are 2 resources that I would take on and that I will take on in this video that I think are the most valuable ones, and I'm going to introduce them to you. The first one is I recorded my screen for 2 hours at these 2550 games, which probably features some of the best or the better 5-card PLO players in the world right now, as this is the highest stakes running in 5-card PLO, and we got a lot of these regulars across 5 tables playing tons of hands. We see a lot of showdowns, and we get to see some ideas on what hands are opening, what hands are 3-betting. So resource number 1 will be myself diving and dissecting the hands that we're going to see here on the screen throughout this episode, this introductory part of how to play 5-card PLO. And then the second part will be myself utilizing Odds Oracle. So Odds Oracle is the software from the site ProPokerTools.com, and within Odds Oracle, you can actually figure out a lot more about the structure of the game, which means how often you're going to have aces, how often do you have a double suited hand, how strong is King, King, 6-6, how strong is pocket aces in different types of situations, pre-flop and post-flop, or how often does your opponent have top set in a certain spot. These kind of questions can be answered with Odds Oracle, so I'm going to utilize this tool in combination with the footage of the 2550 game in order to dive into 5-card PLO. Without further ado, guys, let me know in the comment section if you enjoyed that. Let me know what kind of open questions you want me to explore, and in the future we're definitely going to have here some presentations. I'm going to break down the game in a more structured way, but for the moment I just want to gather, first of all, a good feeling about how the game is being played in terms of VPIPing, 3-betting, bet sizes, post-flop, how the current meta is out there, and also want to get your guys' feedback and responses. Do you enjoy 5-card PLO? What kind of ideas, concepts are you struggling with, and also what format would you prefer in order to learn as much as possible about this game? So let's head right into the action. We see here the first hand takes place on the table on the screen. We have Andre opening under the gun. You can see he's very, very short, very shallow, and then Hobo King defending in the big blind. Flop is 9-4-3, and we're looking at Andre at an SPR around 4. He decides to pot size c-bet, so protection is definitely a very interesting topic in 5-card PLO because it is so much more likely to get a double suited hand. Let me get into that topic just in a moment, but we can see here an unusual, or at least some sort of unusual bet size for an SPR4 situation in PLO. 4 cards, you will see a lot more smaller bet sizings here because we don't necessarily want to transmit the idea that we are definitely committed. But here, protection sort of takes over when it comes to the importance level. Now, the Hobo King is jamming all in on the flop, and the money goes in. Let's have a look at these hands. The under the gun player has King, King, 6-6, Jack. So 2 pair, and he's also double suited with the Jack, diamonds and hearts. And then the big blind has been defending with Queen, Jack, 9-8-5, also double suited. Now, I mentioned now already on the flop that protection is very important because double suited hands are so much more frequent. In order to break down the idea of how frequent they actually are, or how much more frequent they are in comparison to 4-card PLO, we're going to work with the Range Explorer. So just to make clear, I clicked here on Tools, Range Explorer, and then this window is going to open up. Within this window, you can explore different sub-ranges, for example, top 10%, or use syntaxes like aces in Omaha High, for example. You can say aces will make up 2.57% of all hands. You can look at these hands here and check out the rankings for 6-handed and heads up and 10-handed situations. I introduced a lot of these ideas already in the PLO Launchpad. Anyhow, you can just change the game here on top and move over to 5-card PLO High. And the first thing we can see here is that you will get aces around 4.1% instead of 2.57% in 5-card PLO. Now, let me have a look into how often we're going to get a double suited hand dealt in 5-card PLO in comparison to 4-card PLO. I'm going to start off with 4-card PLO. Hopefully some of you guys know about what the number is going to be. And the answer is going to be around 13%, 13.48% of the time. We are going to have a double suited hand in 4-card PLO, right? And a lot of the double suited hands are very strong. They are 3-betting a ton at a time and open raising a lot of the time because they can realize their equity so much more often. Now let's compare that with 5-card Omaha. Before that, we're going to go into the rankings just for a moment. You can see here the rankings for a double suited hand. Let me just double check here. Is there any mistake? I don't think so. The rankings, oh yeah, the best rank obviously is number 1. And if you look at the average rank of a double suited hand in 4-card PLO, it is 27%, right? So the 27th percentile is the average rank of a double suited hand in 4-card PLO. 1 is the best, 100 is the worst. And the best hand, of course, would be ace, ace, king, king, double suited. Now let's compare the strength with 5-card PLO. And here we can see, it's going to go into the tank or the double suited hand here. We haven't defined the last suit, but as we can see, it is going to be 38% instead of 27. So definitely a weaker hand that we are talking about here. And if you look at the counts, we can see that we are going to get a double suited hand 46.8% of the time. So almost 50% of the time, we're going to have a double suited hand in 5-card PLO. So that gives us an idea of how much more likely it is. It's a lot more likely, around more than 3 times, or 3 times, actually more than 3 times more likely to have a double suited hand in 5-card PLO in comparison to 4-card PLO. Just to get some ideas here on the likelihood and the chances. And I think it's important to break down the structure of the game step by step to get a better feel of how strong a certain hand is in a certain scenario. Now, the next answer here, or next question to answer, is the king, king, 6, 6, jack. Is this a hand we potentially want to open under the gun? Does that make sense? So in order to figure this out, I'm going to type in king, king, jack, jack, 6. And we had a double suited hand. So I'm going to use X, X, Y, Y. And if we go to the rankings, we can see here the best rank in a 6-handed setting is going to be 3, and the worst rank is going to be 5. So this is definitely a very strong hand, considered in the top 5% when it comes to the rankings of Odds Oracle. And therefore, I would say this is most likely going to be an open under the gun. Now, the ranking of Odds Oracle is not necessarily 100% perfect when it comes to the contextual ranking ideas, which means how our hand is going to match up in all these different contexts: cold calling, loose tables, facing a 3-bet, and so on. But it is a good starting point to get a feel of the situation. Now we see here Hobo King with Queen Jack 8 9 5. We're going to check out how strong this hand is perceived here. It's also a double suited hand, right? Again, double suited hands on average 37%. So he has Queen Jack 8 9 5 double suited. Now he's blocking one of his suits. And we can see here, this hand is about 21 to 35, depends a little bit on the suits. Now in this instance, he had a queen high suit and a jack high suit. So it's going to be X and Y, but he also had another X in here. Actually not on a Y at the end. So this hand is about 25 to 28 percentile. So most likely it's going to be a defend because the hand, as it is double suited, is going to distribute its equity smooth and seems to be fine. My impression here is, because it is so likely to have a double suited hand, domination is really the name of the game here. And we already knew that when we switched from no limit hold'em to PLO, it's all about domination. But now it becomes even more extreme about domination, especially in multi-way pots. I think what matters a ton is going to be nut suits and also high pairs, because it just becomes more likely that someone else will flop a set when we flop a set. So those are definitely things to keep in mind here. On the flop, we can see how Andre is holding 2 pairs, king, king, 6, 6, of course, and the jack high flush draw on 9, 4, 3. Decided to pot it at SPR 4, and then Hobo King gets it in with a pair, the side cards, so the pair of 9s, the side cards to 2 pairs, and backdoor straight options, as well as the flush draw. I would think, and obviously, again, I'm just getting started here with 5-card PLO, that Andre is probably on the weaker end of his distribution. I mean, you can have a lot of hands that are certainly stronger, like a better flush draw. It seems to me like the rank of the flush draws is going to be more important than in 4-card, again, because it is so much more likely that our opponent has also a double suited hand, has also a suit And if in this case he's going to have the nut flush draw or the second nut flush draw that comes along more often with like a straight draw, a pair, two pair, or a better over pair like pocket. Well, pocket ace is pretty unlikely in this case. But what I'm saying is basically there is a higher chance of being dominated, and I think that is going to drag down the value of this hand on the flop. So it seems to be a good situation to potentially check back, but I'm not certain. And then the queen jack 8-9 to me, or the queen jack 8-9-5 to me seems to be a hand that wants to see a turn card, so I would probably just call against a pot size c-bet and see if we can connect to two pair, straight draws, backdoor flush draws, or even a flush. But anyway, the money goes in, and we see here Andre is going to lose this pot. Well, another thing that we see is that a lot of players are buying in short across these tables. Makes a ton of sense. I advise you guys always to buy in short if you are starting off with PLO, with 4-card PLO, because you're not going to make as many mistakes when it comes to all these stack-off situations. See a pot size open here, so it seems like people are potting. On the table number 2, we can see EEE is not potting, actually raising a little bit smaller. I don't think it's a huge difference, and we see K Jr. with the 3-bet. My impression here is that it is going to be very likely that we're not going to fold a lot against 3-bets, a lot less than in 4-card PLO, just because the equities run so much closer to each other. I could now continue to do some more math, but I think we want to see another hand at showdown and then take those hands together and see how they are matching up pre-flop, how close they are to each other. Maybe take a similar hand in 4-card PLO and see how that is doing. Another hand goes down in the meanwhile. Well, let me just play this hand first, and then we're gonna recap at the bottom left corner. Oh, there's a cold 4-bet. So that is very interesting. Let's have a look what K Jr. is going to do. If K Jr. has like a double suited rundown, and obviously the strength of the rundown can be improved here in comparison to 4-card because you can have 5 connected cards to each other. He's probably gonna be really close to an aces in equity terms against aces. We're gonna figure this out in case he calls and this hand goes to showdown. So it's in the tank. It's going to call. Very dry board, but also very little money behind. So the fact that the board is monotone is actually a pretty decently big deal, because there's such a high likelihood that both players are double suited, given the fact that you are double suited 45-46% of the time. Or in 4-card PLO, it's going to be a lot less likely someone flopped the flush here. So given the low SPR, the money is probably just going to go in here any moment. And hopefully we're able to see these hands at showdown and then draw some conclusions.